Action Comics 1027. Brian Michael Bendis writing with John Romita Jr. on the art, which I cover anyway. But it's notable this issue, Connor once again, as part of his Patreon books, which, you know, one of the higher tiers on patreon.com/MailFuzzTV, you can make myself or Connor read a book. And once again, Action Comics was picked for Connor. So he's jumping back in to talk about this John Romita Jr. masterclass in bad art. So it is the end of the arc, more or less, kind of wrapping up a bunch of stuff. The fight with Red Cloud has been going on. That kind of wraps up. Leon's kind of fled, not just the city, but fled the Earth, because she's from Earth 3. She's not been back to Earth 3 necessarily. She could have went to any Earth, but she's fled the Earth into another dimension. Agent Chase is interviewing Lois to start with, and first of all, like, there's a moment here in the first page, not the recap or the email page, but the first proper page, where Lois is meant to be like sort of puffing, right, as if she's like going pff, right, and the way it's shown visually, it makes it look like she's got like a bat signal coming out of her mouth. Until I saw the sound effect that is next to it, I thought she was spitting, because it looks like a solid thing, like not just some gas. It's got like really straight lines. If you're puffing, I feel like it's a bit more effervescent. Aye, but it's going up the waist, which makes it look more like a light. It looks like a beam of light coming out of her mouth.
Yeah.
The art in this has been with these Romita Jr. issues is basically horrendous from start to finish, and there's the only levels of like it only ranges from really bad to absolutely horrendously bad, and there's some in between of that. But because as bad as this first page is, and this first page is really bad, there is worse. There's worse later on.
Oh, there is, yeah.
Where it bothered me even more.
I also had just a maybe this is partly me missing it, but the font that they use to establish things here, is that a consistent thing all run, or is it just the FBI now?
No, that's been consistent. Yeah.
Okay, because on like 2 pages later, it says, oh, actually, this is Metropolis 2 hours ago. But it's the yellow with the red outline, and it's pasted sideways along a big, tall, thin panel that is mostly red. I didn't actually see those words because my eyes glossed over them because it was just red and it was vertical in a vertical panel. So I didn't notice that there was words because it didn't stand out. So a few panels later, when it was like Lois is being arrested, I was like, wait, what's going on here? Like, where's this timeline? What's happening? And it took me a good 20 seconds to find that text on the page. I didn't know if that was unique to this issue or if it was like a consistent choice. So they were just trying to make the best of it.
Well, I can't remember if that problem pops up before, but I mean that font's been consistent.
Okay.
For the captions. Kara has to go grab Superman, who's basically lost the fight with Red Cloud, while the Superboys distract Red Cloud best they can. This is some of the stuff where I'm looking at this fight in some of these panels and some of these pages, and I'm like, I can only imagine how good this fight might be if there was actually good art. Like, if there was a good artist actually doing this.
There's the page where it's the words are all broken up into individual bubbles. It's like, hey brain, you got, or whatever,
Yeah, the idea is that they're going around in circles, so every time they do a full round, every time they come back round, they're getting one word out, and then they're going zoop. So hey, zoop brain, zoop you. Right. And so the actual lettering there and the way the bubbles are laid out actually does create that effect quite well.
It does, and that wasn't going to be my problem. I think on that particular panel, is that Connor Kent on the top, I'm assuming, because of the darker?
Yes, I think that's Connor on the top.
Why are his hands all like tucked into his chest as he's flying? Like in the because I went back and checked the page before, they are spread, pushed forward like the traditional Superman flying pose, when they're going fast and they're pushing. And that one there, like his arms like shrunk, he's got little T-Rex arms, like
because he's a transformer and he's mid-transformation and he's coming into his chest and he's going to.
I feel like that's as good an explanation as just Romita Jr.
Yes. But so they take Red Cloud to the Phantom Zone. Superman wakes up, and they actually give her a choice, and they're like, "Hey, you can stay here." I did think some of the dialogue here was a little bit out of character for Superman in particular. he feels a bit more, I don't know, vindictive than I would expect Superman to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Where, and I do believe Superman would give her this choice. He's like, hey, your powers are so dangerous that you actually might qualify for staying in the Phantom Zone. And this is basically just like a hell world where some of the worst Kryptonian and superpowered beings have to go because they're just not safe to be anywhere else. And we all accept that. We all accept that, yeah, you can't just put Zod in a prison on Earth. It just doesn't work, right? But he says, but no, if you make the choice to go serve your time in a human prison and maybe contribute back to society, you can do that. And I'd prefer you to do that. But that's not what he says here. He says, but make no mistake, I don't really care which one you pick. And I was like, that feels a bit dark coming from Clark. I feel like he wouldn't say it that way, but I mean...
Yeah, I think the exact line is, I promise you, I'm okay either way. I'm like...
Yeah, okay. My only explanation for it is that she has just killed someone, like an innocent person that Clark was friends with, so his emotions are a bit heightened. Because I don't mind, later on in the issue, he has a moment where he... like imagines like destroying Star Labs, because they're talking about how Star Labs are at the center of like so many things that have happened across Bendis' run, both in Superman Action and also Young Justice. And there's this moment where Superman, it looks like he flies into the building and just disintegrates it with, flies through it with his heat vision. And it's like, this is really out of character, but then it snaps back and it's like, oh, he's just thinking about it, he's just imagining it. And I'm like,
I laughed really hard on that page when he's doing that, because you've got John going like, Dad, 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 and I was just hearing it as the Snake from the Game Over on Metal Gear. Those shouts. That's how it read to me, and I couldn't stop laughing as I was reading it.
And I have no problem with like Superman like being angry enough that he has a thought like this. He would never act on it, but I have no problem with him having the thought and like sort of like working through it, because that's just human. It's human to have like an anger and have to like fantasize about the most extreme like callback or revenge you could have, and then go, no, but this is why I won't do that because I'm a human being and I'm empathetical and I'm level-headed and so on and so on. So that's fine, but yeah, some of his dialogue with Red Cloud earlier on, who does clearly make the choice to go to a human prison, because we see her in one such prison with a device on her, which is clearly dampening her powers, which, by the way, might be the worst looking page of the whole book to me. I think the art in that page is absolutely horrendous. I
think there are worse panels, but because that is a full page on its own, yeah, it's pretty bad.
I don't understand, like, she has no shoulders for a start. All the lines in the jumpsuit and on her face, like, why is her face so liney?
Shadows. I don't know.
I don't understand. She's got like lines going across her face all the way up and down, like, or across the way, but they're all the way down her face. So I don't understand. I don't understand why this looks so bad. She gets a letter from Leon, who's left her a letter saying, hey, we controlled the streets. We had one rule: don't fight Superman. You broke that rule. You let Lex Luthor get into your head. And I just want you to know that if I find a version of you in whatever new Earth I'm on, I'm going to ruin her as quickly as possible because you've pissed me off. Is basically the sentiment. Yeah, Brainy goes back to the future. John says, I'll see you there in a day. Although it's time travel, so why does he have to be there a day later? Why can't he just travel to the same day a day later?
Because apparently he's the timelines are in sync. It's okay. It's Dark rules, Pete.
Okay, all right, fine. But there is an interesting moment. I feel like this is probably referencing Supergirl's time in the Legion here. Her saying, I should put, I want to come and visit someday, and Brainy tells her a secret. He's like, oh, hey, now you will come and visit. I know that's going to happen. And he tells her a secret about the future.
It feels like a tease for, okay, we've got plans for Kara at some point in the next year or so.
That's possible. Part of me was just thinking it was a reference to when she, was kind of like the main character in the Legion.
I mean, it could be just that, but it felt like, I don't know. To me, it felt like, no, it will still, they'll do something like that again.
Yeah, we'll see. That's assuming that Bendis is even on Legion, because I mean, Young Justice has ended. He's leaving Superman in action soon, so we'll see if he's even on Legion or if a Legion book even exists long enough for plans to actually happen.
Maybe he's going to do a Supergirl book, and that'll just be an arc in the Supergirl book. I don't know.
Who knows? Although Supergirl's face in the panel where Brainy's whispering to her is basically nightmare fuel. Yeah, it's nightmare fuel. I don't know.
She looks like a wax figure.
How is the art? How? I mean, I know I say this every time, but every time I go to read one of these issues, I am shocked all over again that this can be in a professional sold comic book.
Do you know what I think is the worst part as well? Like it's not like, oh, there's one consistent problem that he's bad at, like, and that's why this looks bad. It's like, no. There are like 12 different things that look terrible for all different reasons in this issue. Like, there's no consistency to the problems.
End of the issues, they come back to the Day of the Planet. They've got some news to share. It turns, and I assume this is related to, like, how he can afford this is related to his miniseries, but Jimmy is the new owner of the Daily Planet and is now Perry's boss as well as everyone else's. That's the cliffhanger.
Yeah, he was pretty rich by the end of that. I mean, the Olsons were rich anyway. That was a whole big part of that. But he had access. I think they ended with him having access to, his part of the trust. He was the only one not broke. The siblings. That was why he was that's why he was targeted for murder anyway, so that his trust would pass to his brother. That was the whole point of the book, essentially.
Yeah, there's a couple of funny beats building up to it where, like, someone says, "Is Lex Luthor the owner of Daily Planet?" And you just hear Perry shout "worse" from his office. And that's pretty funny, because especially because I almost, like, as soon as I heard that, I was like, okay, it's going to be something that's not actually that bad, but it's just funny that Perry thinks it's that bad. So it being Jimmy was amusing.
Honestly, it was like I was Lex Luthor not the boss, not the owner right now, because that seemed like something that might have happened recently.
Nah, Leon was the boss, but now she's fled.
Right.
So that's where we are. Yeah, this. Story-wise, I have no problem. I'll on some dialogue from Clark that feels a bit vicious with the Red Cloud. I have no problem from a plot perspective, and that's been kind of a running theme with these Action Comics issues for a while.
You could probably copy and paste your conclusion.
Yeah,
to all of these.
Because I think one of the best things that the book's done in the last arc or so was the reveal that Leon came from Earth 3. Like, that reveal. When me and Matt found that out, it was like, oh, that's really cool. That's interesting. That explains why she has this view of Superman and why she acts differently, why she has all these techniques. It was a really interesting dynamic to add into the whole mix. And the story's played out just fine, I think, for the most part. But the art has severely hampered the enjoyment of it consistently throughout. Because every page I turn, I am horrified at what I'm seeing all over again. It is distracting, and some people, and I get why some people might say, oh, you're being too harsh, like, just, okay, this is how it looks, just read the story and be over it. And normally I can, if there's art that's just not that great, it's just kind of whatever, I can just kind of start ignoring it and just accept it and just read the story. But this art is so distractingly bad that every page I turn to, I'm like,
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the record a lot of I don't agree to that train of thought anyway, of just ignore the art and get over it. I mean, no, the art is half of the story, half of the experience, at least. They're as much a storyteller as the writer in a comic. That's the whole point.
I don't dispute that, but I do think it is possible, if the art's only serviceable, to kind of just then focus on what the story is and not let it sort of, like, okay, you have the sort of the, it's kind of whatever, but it's not distracting and takes away from the story unless it's actually properly distractingly bad. And that's what I mean. I don't think there's a better example of distractingly bad than John Romita Jr. in his current state.
Yeah, it just baffles me. Like, reading some of his earlier stuff, and it's like, no, he was talented. Like, it looked good. Like, not even like good by Romita standards. Like good. It's like, what happened? What just happened? Where did it go? And the fact that does anyone defend this? I don't know. Like, do people read this now and they go, oh, it looks good? Like, are people still fans of this, or is it just he's getting by on name cred and because it's Action Comics and people are going to buy Action Comics no matter what?
Probably the latter. I don't imagine how many people could defend this. If there is anyone who likes Romita Jr.'s current art, I wouldn't even debate them on it. I mean, first of all, art's super subjective anyway, but I don't think I'd even want to have the conversation, because I feel like nothing good's going to come of it, because ultimately I'm just going to have a hard time believing anything you say to me, if I'm honest.
I'd be interested to know why, because, like, I think he still clearly understands the storytelling craft, because I think his layouts are still fine.
Oh, sure,
so
yeah.
He understands the storytelling and the craft of that. Like, he hasn't lost that. that knowledge is still there. I think it just looks like he doesn't have control of the pencil like he used to. I don't know. I don't know what happened. Maybe it's just, I don't know, he got old and lost some of that fine motor skills.
Romita Junior's art makes me think that I could make money as a comic book artist. And that's, if you're making me think that, then something's wrong. Because I can't draw for shit.
I'd be really interested to see if I could draw better or worse than this. As someone who hasn't picked up a pencil in over a decade.
Yeah, it's just, there's something to talk about. Even that last page, Superman's like the top right panel. There's just a lot of vertical lines in Superman's outfit, and he's just standing there. There's no motion.
Is that? I think that's John sat next to him on the left.
Yes, I think so.
Looks like he's about 40.
He looks older than Superman in that panel. Yes.
I don't know what's going on there, but he just does.
And Supergirl, I mean, I'm sure she's just floating, and that's why she's taller. But she looks, but because of the way she's off panel and just poking her head in, it looks like she's
leaning
tall.
in, isn't she?
Yeah. It looks like she's super tall compared to Superman. It's weird. Yeah. It's awful. It's awful. I don't know.
And also, just on the final panel, like the very, very final panel with Jimmy Olsen, he's looking down. Jimmy Olsen is he's looking down, wiping his nose and looking, nothing. And then it does the little mini panel, like the close up on his face as he looks up, and he smiles. I feel like that's supposed to be a smirk, like the moment tells me it's a smirk, but it's not a smirk face. Maybe I'm projecting, but knowing Jimmy, that feels like it should definitely be a smirk.
Nah, that last little panel where he's smiling, it looks like the sort of uncle you want to keep your children away from.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. He looks like there should be a restraining order between him and a school. That's all I'm saying. That's actually comics. What are you giving it?
Well, last time I checked, the last time I read an Action Comics issue was 1024. I gave that a 2. Now, I will say this issue was better than that one, because that was the one with all of the really long, terrible dialogue from that random alien race. That
No, that was Superman 25. That wasn't Action.
Superman? Okay. Well, whatever the actual one was, then I had a lot more. I remember having more problems with it. I mean, clearly. That was the one where the character died. They killed someone, and I think you and Matt were both like, "Wait, they actually killed them."
Mm-hmm.
That was that issue. I think this was better than that, so I'll give it a 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, I like the story well enough, for the most part. I feel like every time I say that, it sounds like I'm not super enthusiastic about it, but I don't think it's because the story isn't like good. I think the problem is that the art is like detracting so much from the story that it kind of leaves me with this, like, I think I like the story, but it's hard to actually be sure because the art's ruining it so much. So it's not that I'm just unconfident. Like, if I sound unconfident when I say that, it's because I kind of am, because the art is making it so murky.
If you remove the context and just work through the core beats in your head, do you like those beats? And it's the execution that's failed, essentially. Yeah, but the execution in the art side as well.
But it's hard to kind of separate that sometimes. But yeah, what would I usually give this? Like a 5? Like a 4 or 5?
I don't think I pay attention.
Yeah, I'll go the 4.5.